Story to share with you today. It's about how I completely got rid of my severe yeast infection and how I finally regained my health after 12 years of suffering. How did I do it? Well, a lot of what really worked for me is stuff you probably won't read about in conventional medicine books or health magazines. And I bet it will work for you too. I'm going to tell you my story because it's probably very similar to yours. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a gal, anyone who struggles with yeast infection will relate to this story. Entire video, which will not be online for long. I will do more than just tell you a story. I will give you the solution I discovered and use to this very day. 3 critical principles you must know are: 1. What Candida yeast infection really is and why you have it. 2. What doesn't work and what makes your yeast infection worse. 3. The only proven way to get rid of Candida yeast infection forever. If I read somewhere that it might fix one of my many medical complaints, I'd add it to my repertoire. I even tried massage, acupuncture, and chiropractics, hoping that something would ease my suffering. By the time I added up all of the expenses, I had spent enough to have purchased my first home. Yet, I remained cooped up in a small apartment because I couldn't afford anything better. Worse still, I was still sick and getting sicker. I tried everything. As my 30th birthday drew near, I knew that I had to take some real action. It was time to get serious and find some answers. That's when I became a real nut about holistic medicine. I made an appointment to see a naturopath, and while he didn't solve my problem, he steered me in a new direction toward a healthier life. It was only while I was seeing the naturopath that I learned that I was suffering from a Candida albicans infection, a systemic yeast infection. There was yeast overload throughout my entire body, and that's why my symptoms were so varied and getting worse. The yeast had started as typical vaginal and sinus infections, which is very common, and then spread throughout my internal system, attacking virtually every organ and tissue it came in contact with. No wonder I felt so sick all of the time. Once I knew what I was up against, I had a new struggle to face: ridding my body of the yeast. My naturopath tried every treatment that he knew of, but while I showed some improvement, I was still suffering. I was not prepared to give up, however, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. In my desperate search for a cure, I wanted to know everything there was to know about Candida infection, how it worked, how it could affect the body's organs, and how to get rid of it. So I started studying hard. I bought every book on dermatology, yeast overgrowth, hormonal production, detoxing, dieting, and nutrition that I could get my hands on. I spent hours at the library, swallowing stacks of books, journals, and magazines, and reading every word. I read dozens of medicine books from cover to cover, literally. But I didn't just read. I interviewed countless other yeast infection sufferers and endlessly picked the brains of every doctor, herbalist, homeopath, and naturopath kind enough to lend their time. Over the years, I spent a small fortune trying every type of product and treatment method you could possibly think of: herbal remedies, prescription drugs, 3-lac, tinctures, cell food oxygen, tonics, detox diets, vitamin therapy, antibiotics, hydrotherapy, aromatherapy, macrobiotics, reflexology, Chinese medicine, vegetarianism, the Y diet, magnetic therapy, the mucus-less diet, the blood type diet, over-the-counter treatments, and so on. And yet, despite all of this, I still suffer from severe yeast infection. So I stopped applying these so-called anti-yeast treatments completely. What was the point? At best, these treatments worked short-term, caused a myriad of side effects, and cost a small fortune. Many times, I honestly felt that I would never get rid of it. I truly felt like a prisoner in my own body. I remember telling myself, "Give up, let it go. Everyone has a cross to bear, and yours is yeast infection. Stop fighting and accept it." Maybe this sounds just like you. Well, today, I am a different person. It took several more years of research, but I began to see some connections. Once I understood that a real cure could only be achieved if the underlying root cause and the circumstances that promote Candida growth in the body were dealt with, I began to realize the importance of treating the entire body from the inside out. I began to gather information about every yeast therapy I could find. It didn't matter if one person or 100,000 people said it worked for them. I documented it and gave it a try. For each new remedy, I wrote down how it worked, its side effects, and other important information. Hundreds of therapies later, I began to look for a pattern, exploring if some treatments could be combined for maximum effect. What I discovered was amazing. It was only after 12 painful years when I accidentally stumbled upon this missing piece to the Candida yeast infection puzzle that my yeast infection completely disappeared. My chronic yeast infection cleared up, my sinus problems went away, my stomach ailments disappeared, and my energy returned. Still, not completely sure that I had indeed found a cure, I returned to several doctors and asked them to run some tests. Amazingly, the tests showed that all signs of infection were gone. I was finally healthy again. My general practitioner wanted to know how I had done it. She was utterly amazed when I outlined my program. "I think you may have something here," she said. "I'd ask a few other chronic Candida sufferers to try it too." I followed her advice. Since I had been on multiple blogs and Candida forums for years, it wasn't difficult to find people willing to give my remedy a try. What I was offering was a completely safe alternative to all of the dangerous treatments offered by the medical community. I sent off my protocol to several dozen Candida infection sufferers and waited for their feedback. It didn't take long before I began receiving emails, text messages, and phone calls from people all over the world, telling me how their symptoms were literally disappearing. My program was working. More and more people were asking me for help. My doctor was right. I was onto something and needed to share my discovery with the world. That was years ago, and today I'm still Candida infection-free. I can honestly say that I've never felt so good. All of my symptoms are gone, and you know what? My health is now better than it had been even before the yeast infection. When I finally found the missing piece to the Candida yeast infection puzzle, I was absolutely amazed. How did I do it? I embraced the one truth that hardly anyone knows. If you are ready to do what it takes to finally be Candida infection-free, then join thousands of people around the world and order this program today. Right now is your chance to start the path to Candida infection-free life. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. Isn't it time you tried something that actually works? All you have to do to get started right now is to take me up on my zero-risk offer. Just click the button below this video, and it's all yours. Every bonus, every trick, and every secret to eliminating your yeast infection and restoring your health. And it's only $39.97 without any risk. Click the button now, and let's get started.